Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. And today I'm gonna be talking about these new leaks that have been posted on Reddit. And apparently they do detail some stuff about the Rise of Skywalker that apparently we didn't already know. Some things we kind of already guessed, but there are some things that I really want to talk about. And uh, this is an article that comes to us straight from Binding into Comics. It says, "Rumor: Disney sabotaged JJ Abrams and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker." Now, where is any of this coming from? Well, it comes from this. It comes from a Reddit user called Saltier Than Crate. That's him right over there, and you can find this on Reddit. Just go to Reddit and search Saltier Than Crate, Star Wars or ROS, for Rise of Skywalker, and you can find it. It should be the very first thing they post. It should be the very first link. And I have it open over here, as well as something else which I'm gonna get into a little bit later on. And again, some of the things here are kind of, again, things that we kind of already knew, or at the very least we could have guessed. But some things are interesting because they do detail some of the sort of the behind the scenes goings on of when this movie is being made. So with that being said, let's get into this. I'm not going to delay this any longer. Since shortly after release weekend, I've been corresponding with someone who worked closely on the production of ROS and works for one of the major companies I can't disclose here. I have verified the source to my satisfaction. To protect the source, I am rewording what we spoke about over the last 2 weeks and am submitting it to you in bullet point format. I have written based on what they told me. The TLDR is that they were upset with the final product of TROS and wanted to share their perspective on how it went down and where it went wrong. Now, before we continue with what's written over here, I do just want to say, what we're about to read, please consider to be a rumor. And again, there's no way I can confirm this, and so please take it with a grain of salt, okay? No pun intended. Okay, first one. The leakers for our TROS had an agenda and are tied to Disney directly. My source confessed that they have an agenda as well, and that they struggle with ignoring what's been happening to someone who they think doesn't deserve it. JJ always treated everyone on and off set with respect, so my source's agenda is that what Disney has done to JJ and how much they screwed him over should be something people are at least aware of, whether you like him as a filmmaker or not. So apparently, first of all, let's get into this for a little bit. So the leakers for TROS had an agenda and are tied to Disney directly. So what they're basically saying is that all the leaks that we've been getting, first of all, here's the thing about the leaks. I always found it a little bit strange that the fact that literally the entire movie leaked online and somehow nobody over at Lucasfilm, it made it feel like nobody over at Lucasfilm cared. But apparently, according to this person, apparently Disney knew about this and purposely let it happen because they sort of wanted JJ Abrams to fail. Now, again, that to me sounds a little bit, I don't know. I'm questioning that a little bit because this does sort of, because at the end of the day, this does affect Disney in the long run. So that I'm kind of worried about. I'm a little skeptical when it comes to that. Although again, considering the egos over at Hollywood, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if this was true. Like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were willing to sabotage their own projects just to satisfy their own egos. And when I say that, we're about to get into the why with the next few points. Disney was one of the studios who were in that Bad Robot bidding war last year. Disney never had much interest in Bad Robot as a company, but they did in JJ because they saw Warner Brothers, who JJ went with in the end, as a major threat. I mean, again, that does call it into question because, I mean, if you saw him as a threat, why would you have him direct the final installment in your Star Wars trilogy like that? That doesn't. I mean, I can kind of guess why. I mean, they probably thought that since JJ directed The Force Awakens and The Force Awakens made over $2 billion, they probably thought he was going to do the same with The Rise of Skywalker, and people obviously didn't like The Last Jedi, so they probably thought it was a bad idea, which it is, to bring back Rian Johnson. So I guess they just went with JJ at the end. So again, again, I don't know if the whole, because Warner Brothers, um, they saw JJ as a threat because he's Warner Brothers. For anyone who doesn't know, offered him like $500 million to basically come in and make content, which I don't think he deserves that. I'm worried about what he might do with DC. JJ is very successful at bringing franchises back like Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and Star Wars. That's I don't know about these last two. I mean, I liked Mission Impossible 3. I will admit that. But yeah, Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm not. I don't know much about Star Trek, but when it comes to Star Wars, yeah, no. Warner Brothers, but from what I heard from Star Trek fans, they don't like what JJ Abrams did with the 2009 Star Trek and then Into Darkness and then Beyond. They don't like what he did in those movies. Warner Brothers is struggling with DC, and aside from Wonder Woman, DC is still seen as a bit of a joke in its current state by the GA. I think it means general audience. Warner Brothers wants Abrams for some DC projects. Again, we all pretty much speculated that. My source said that this generation Star Wars is the MCU and Marvel's biggest threat is a well-operational DC. They want to keep DC in the limbo that they're in right now. Abrams jumpstarting that franchise with something like a successful audience-pleasing Superman movie makes them nervous. Their goal is to make JJ look bad to potential investors/shareholders. My source mentioned this shortly after the premiere. The Rise of Skywalker we saw last night was not the Rise of Skywalker we thought we worked on. Okay, though, this is where we get into some of the behind the scenes when it comes to the actual filmmaking. JJ was devastated and blindsided by this. He's been falling down over the last 6 months because of some of the ridiculous demands Disney had that changed his movie story. While the scenes were shot, a lot of the changes were made in post-production, and the audio was recorded and altered. My source said they've never seen anything like this happen before. He's the director and he wasn't in the know about what they were doing behind his back. Now, again, I can believe that studios or corporations would do this. Them doing this, I'm not calling into question that they would actually do this, but I don't know. Apparently, JJ felt threatened over the month leading up to the premiere. Ryan was never meant to do episode 9, despite some rumors saying that he was. JJ was brought back by Iger, not Kathleen Kennedy. Okay, that's interesting. Disney insisted on more fan service and less controversy. Well, we all know how that ended up. JJ's original agreement when he signed on was indicating he would have way more creative control than he did on TFA. It became evident this wasn't the case only a couple of weeks into shooting when the trouble with meddling started. JJ wanted to do some scenes he thought were important, but Disney shut it down, citing budgetary reasons. Again, if this is true, just this one point, again, if this is true, you're telling me that you didn't let him do these scenes that he believed were important because of budget, and yet you had the budget to constantly pay to have some scenes reshot, re-edited, and some audio re-recorded. You had the money for that, but you didn't have the money for him to basically film, edit, and ADR scenes that he believed would have been important. You didn't have the money for that, but you had the money for other things. Okay. Again, if this is true, it's just more proof that Disney has no idea what the fuck they're doing. May 2019, JJ argued that those scenes were crucial. He had to let go of one of the scenes. The other scene he insisted on was approved at first. He did reshoots and additional photography in July. The new scene was shot at Bad Robot in October. Now this actually, in case you forgot, this lines up with some of the information that's been coming out leading up to the release of the film. If you remember, we've been getting a lot of information saying that the movie is still being filmed, despite the fact that it was so close to release. I mean, in October, they were still shooting scenes, despite the fact that it was literally 2 months, or at least 2.5 months away from being released. I mean, that is... So again, this could lend credence to everything else that's being said in this post. The quote-unquote ending that will blow your mind. So if anyone who doesn't know where that's from, Kevin Smith basically said, he mentioned on, I don't know, I think in an interview, I think it was in an interview, where he said that he saw or someone told him about the last shot of the Rise of Skywalker, or I guess the ending of the Rise of Skywalker, and he said it was going to blow your mind. Well, we saw the ending, and it did blow our minds. It blew our minds with how stupid it was, or how just absolutely, just completely out of touch Lucasfilm is. If they actually thought that was a good ending. Older actors were included like Hayden, Ewan, and Samuel, and anyone who wasn't animated. The Force Ghosts weren't meant to be voices because they shot that footage on camera. The actors were in costumes. Rey was supposed to be surrounded by the Force Ghosts to serve as a sort of barrier between her and the Sith surrounding them. Okay, here's the thing. Even if this is true, even if they did shoot this, why? What would be the point? Like, why would they want to defend her from the Sith and that stupid on the bleachers? Why would they want to defend her? Even in the movie, they didn't even try to attack her. They just sat there and watched. So, I don't know. Even if this was in the movie, it still wouldn't have made sense. My source thinks but can't 100% confirm that this is because of China. It's an office talk of sorts. Some VFX people claim that they got a list of approved shades of blue they could use on the Luke Force Ghosts. Cutting this out was when the bad blood turned into a nightmare for JJ because the movie he was making was suddenly unrecognizable to him in almost every way. Now, this to me, JJ is starting to sound like a certain other director that we all know who pretty much got the same treatment from the studio that he worked on. My source knows JJ well enough to know that he's not just the yelling type, but apparently in a meeting, he yelled something along the lines of, "Why don't you just put directed and written by Lucasfilm then?" I'm not gonna lie, I'd actually pay just to see JJ Abrams say that. Or just to be a fly on the wall when that happened. Again, if this is indeed true. My source wasn't present for that exchange, but knows some who were. Disney demanded they shoot some scenes that would have things in it for merchandise. They Fly Now, oh god, is one of them. It's also JJ's least favorite scene. At a November screening of a 2 hour and 37-minute cut, he cringed, groaned, and laughed when the scene was on. Yeah, I don't think anybody... I'm pretty sure JJ Abrams wasn't alone on that one. Pretty sure JJ Abrams wasn't alone on that. My source says that JJ was most likely not joking when he said "you're right" in the interview where they asked him about TROS criticism. JJ's original early November cut was 3 hours and 2 minutes long. In January, JJ suggested that they turn this into 2 films. My source told me this well before Terrio mentioned it in an interview a couple of days ago. When Disney said no, JJ was content with making this 3 hours long. Over a period... Excuse me. Over a period of 9 months, JJ started realizing that one by one his ideas and whole scenes were being thrown out the window or entirely altered by people who have, quote, no business meddling with the creatives. I think we all know who those people are. They were not on the same page when it came to creative decisions, and it became obvious that Disney had an agenda in addition to wanting to please shareholders. Disney could afford messing up 9 for the sake of the bigger picture. Oh boy. When it came to protecting things unrelated to 9. The cut JJ eventually and hesitantly agreed to in early December was 2 hours and 37 minutes. Now this is interesting because remember at one point we kept getting the news that this was supposed to be the longest Star Wars movie ever, and yet this movie was even shorter than The Last Jedi. So again, it's possible that a lot of what's being said here is true. It wasn't the cut we saw, which he wouldn't have approved of, which is 2 hours and 22 minutes long. Apart from the Force Ghost, there were other crucial and emotional scenes missing. The cut they released looked chopped and taped back together with weak Scotch tape. And that's from JJ himself. The movie opened with Rey's training. Her first scene with Rose was shortly after. Now, this is apparently a scene they cut now. So, her first scene with Rose was shortly after Rey damaged BB-8 during the training. Rose made a silly joke about this. She loses trust in more than so. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's better they cut this out. This doesn't sound interesting. Kylo on Mustafar scene was 2 minutes longer. There was a moment where Kylo seemed a bit dizzy and his vision was shown as blurry for a second, almost as if time half stopped, while everyone in the background was slow-mo fighting. Kylo hears Vader's breathing, then shakes his head, and time goes back to moving at a normal pace, and he jumps right back into battle. The scene from the trailer where he knocks that guy down, which it did end up in the movie later. Now, again, this still wouldn't have fixed that scene, because how did Kylo know the Wayfinder was on Mustafar? And it's just, again, this wouldn't have made the movie better, or this wouldn't have at the very least made that scene better. They cut some of the scenes from the light speed skipping segment. Thank God, that scene was stupid enough as it is. I didn't need more of it. Some of the planets that were cut were Kashyyyk, Naboo, and Kamino. Again, more fan service. The scene where the TIE fighters are chasing them through the iceberg, those quarters were inspired by, okay, Jaina was confirmed to be Lando's daughter. Rey not only healed Kylo's face scar, but she killed Kylo when she healed Ben. Oh, Jesus Christ. So this would, okay, you know what? This is, if this is true, it's a good thing they cut it out, because this would have made her even more of a Mary Sue that she already is. Listen to this. Rey not only healed Kylo's face scar, but she killed Kylo when she healed Ben. Kylo ceased to exist when Rey healed him. My source mentioned that some people assumed it was Han Solo who healed him, but that isn't true, and that wasn't Han Solo. Yeah, we all knew that, but the problem is that wasn't explained in the movie. If you needed to add something to help contextualize a certain scene, then you failed. Oh boy, that was Leia using her own memories as well as Ben's to create a physical manifestation of his own thoughts, to nudge him towards what he needed to do. That was her own way of communicating that with him, and it wasn't possible without her dying in the process. She made the ultimate sacrifice for her son, and this flew over people's heads with the Disney cut. Well, of course it did. Of course it did, because of the way this shitty movie was edited. Now, I just want to talk about this for a second. I just want to talk about this. The whole Rey not only healing his face scar, but apparently she killed Kylo and saved Ben. So you're telling me that at one point throughout this movie, you're telling me that they would have made her not only be able to heal wounds, but apparently she can kill the Sith persona with her force healing. Are you... Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Okay, I don't know if this is true, but if it is, thank God they left it out of the movie. But if this is true, it's also sad, because at one point they actually thought about putting this in the movie. Oh my God. So you're telling me she now has the abilities? So apparently now Jedis have the ability to completely destroy the Sith persona in the person. Like, so you're telling me that Luke would have been able to just put his hand on, let's say, Vader's chest and use force healing at any point, even before the ending of Return of the Jedi, when he sacrificed himself to kill Palpatine. You're telling me all Luke had to do was look for that one opportunity to put his hand on Vader's shoulder, use force healing, and then Vader would have died and Anakin would be back. You're telling me apparently that's all he had to do. Or you know what, not even Luke. What about Obi-Wan on Mustafar? You know, because after he disabled him, why didn't he walk over to him? Because Anakin wouldn't have been able to do anything at that point. Put his hand on say, Anakin's shoulder, and then just use force healing, and then Darth Vader would have been dead, and Anakin would have come back. Granted, he would have lost his legs and his left arm, but hey, shit happens. Who knows, right? At least Vader's alive. Or you know what? Why not even Vader? Why Vader? Oh, you know what? Let's not stop at Vader. Let's go to Palpatine. Why didn't why didn't Mace Windu put his hand on Palpatine's shoulder and then use force healing, and then Sheev Palpatine would be around, but Darth Sidious would be dead? It's just, oh my God. If this was an actual ability, there would never be any Sith. Jedis would just be able to just put their hands on them, and then boom, no more Sith. Oh my God. Okay, let's continue. The late November cut, the last cut JJ approved of, had scenes with Rose and Rey still. JJ wanted to give her a more meaningful arc. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this. Finn wanted to tell Rey something. Okay, now this is kind of interesting. Finn wanted to tell Rey something was always meant to be for sensitivity. In the 3-hour cut, explicitly stated there was a moment when Jen and her were running up to the stop of the Star Destroyer, and Finn needed to unlock or move something, and he first moved it, and I was surprised when it happened. This was replaced with a CGI'd BB fixing whatever needs to. Okay, so they look. Here's the thing about this. It wouldn't have made the movie any better. It wouldn't have fixed any of the problems with the film, but at least we would have seen Finn doing something cool. At the very least, we could have gotten that. But JJ Abrams really wants to promote BB-8, even though it's a fucking football. Just kick it. Someone kick it. Babu Freak was nearly cut. I don't care about Babu Freak. There were a bunch of scenes where Rey and Kylo really went through cut moments, and it's just portray that in turmoil. Again, at this point, nobody cared about Kylo Ren. Nobody cared about Rey. The Kylo Ren scene where he dies was at least 4 minutes longer with more dialogue. Ben was always supposed to die, so Ben dying was always the plan. Again, that doesn't surprise me. They do want to make him like a terrible version of Darth Vader, so this doesn't surprise me. Source also added that if he wasn't, then that might have been in an earlier draft, which they haven't read. The first draft they read included Lando. The Reylo kiss and Ben's death was not part of the reshoots. It was a part of the re-editing. Even the cut that JJ thought was coming out earlier this month had a longer version of that scene than what was shown in the theatrical cut. JJ was against the Reylo kiss and just Reylo in general. This was Disney's attempt to please both sides of the fandom. Well, we all know how that ended up, didn't we, Disney? We all know how that ended up. You chose to pander to the worst people you could have pandered to. JJ was not happy where TLJ took the story. Of course, again, we all pretty much guessed that. The final result is a mix of that story and the story they told Disney and whatever, blah, 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 blah. JJ was gutted over the final cut, final result. JJ's cut still exists and will always exist. We'll most likely never see it unless someone accidentally leaks it. Ed, I forgot one thing the source wanted to include it concerning Finn Poe. Same issue kind of Finn Poe. That's the battle. Creatives of the film came to the position to the part that so shield doors investments that are created. Yeah, it's just it's more proof that, or if this is indeed true, this is proof that Disney doesn't care about these agendas as they like to claim they do. They just like to go out there pretending they actually give a crap about any of this, when in reality they're just pandering to SJWs just to try and because they think that there's money in it when there isn't, and SJWs are just eating it up, thinking that Disney is actually thinks like them when in reality they don't. It's just, again, so I don't all of this is interesting. Some of the things, again, like I said, some of the things we kind of guessed, but some things were just wow, that was terrible. The whole Kylo. Now, I was just gonna end it here, and I wanted to ask you guys what your thoughts on this was, but I actually just found this. This was posted by Salter the Crate. This was just posted 12 hours ago. And apparently it goes a bit more into detail about some of the things that he posted here. So here is some clarifications about my The Rise of Skywalker post and a statement from my source. I'm making this post at the request of my source to answer a few questions since it's impossible to answer the many questions in the leak post itself. For those asking how I verified who this source was, I know their name, I have seen their business card and ID badge, I have seen documents, folders, and forms related to their work, including non-Star Wars projects. I have seen photos taken at studios and events, some complete with EXIF data, I don't know what that is, that correspond to established production timelines. I have seen bank statements confirming production-related activities. I have seen correspondence between my source and others at this company. In total, I felt I had enough to make a post on Reddit based on the source alone. My source strongly disagrees with certain aspects of Salter the Crate and the Phantom Menace. They reached out to me specifically because we have had prior contact unrelated to SCC or Star Wars, and they trusted me to pass their information on. I made the decision to post on SCC because of my modship there. Okay, so from the source regarding the question of JJ disliking the kiss. JJ didn't like the kiss but had to include something along those lines. They settled for what to show, but that doesn't mean he liked it. He absolutely did not. He's the guy who donated $1 million to Time's Up. Again, he was vehemently against Reylo for this reason. Originally, as being summer 2017, he was told that Reylo doesn't have to be a thing. But one of the few big fandom things that came out of TLJ was Reylo. You can blame Rian Johnson for that. That part of the fandom existed since TFA, but TLJ really skyrocketed that. That's when Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy specifically, became adamant about including it. So Marianne saying that means that yes, they decided to include that one scene, but there's different cuts of it. Some showing a bit more of that with some dialogue before he dies. Again, look, whether there was dialogue or not, it still wouldn't have changed the scene at all. The fact that it happens at all is the problem. It never should have happened. The following is from the source directly, which they gave me permission to post on their behalf. I'm surprised the media is even commenting on it to refute all of this, because even the way they're wording things is flat out laughable and makes them look like they're trying to cover it up by being ridiculously over the top and mentioning buzzwords or sentences like tinfoil hat and conspiracy. We live in a fake news world where we're all well aware that the media now has an agenda. Yes, this is what we've been trying to say. Access media has an agenda. And anything that threatens that agenda just gets beaten down to the point where they try to get people to see them as sort of like, oh, like we're just spinning conspiracy theories and all that crap. Investigative, unbiased journalism is a rarity only a few publications can afford. It would be one thing if they denied something film-related, but they cannot. Literally cannot. Have irrefutable evidence about something related to a business mess only a few would be aware of. This isn't something an average Joe tied to a project can know. This isn't something JJ would come to you and mention willy-nilly. This isn't something the actors can freely speak about, though I'm surprised about Dominic a bit. Disney is so much bigger than the glimpses the media gets to see and hear about. Peter Serrata, whom I actually adore and have ironically met on a number of occasions, with all due respect, cannot be in the know about things like this no matter how you spin it. No matter how good he thinks his sources are, he simply cannot. I think we should all be cautious in what we believe in. This goes for what I am saying as well. I have no qualms in admitting that I come from a biased place and that I have an agenda as well. My agenda is to fight a genuinely massive force that is trying to control a narrative in such devious ways. Anyone saying, but JJ is an established powerhouse, bless you, but he's an ant compared to Disney. Well, yeah, we all know that. Disney, a company that used him merely as a tool and tossed him when they no longer liked the decisions that he made, decisions outside of Disney and decisions that Disney has no business sticking their nose in. I could say much more. I want to share more with the world. But that would mean throwing some people I care about under the bus and getting them in trouble. I cannot do that, nor can I put them in a position where they will feel pressured to go against what they believe in by saying something they're asked to say. I always knew this was a lose-lose scenario in terms of credibility. That's not news to me. I'd be naive to think otherwise. Planting the seeds is the only thing I care about for now. While I have proof of who my source is, I don't have proof of many of their claims. I have chosen to trust them based on our prior interactions. I hope that they will be able to share more in the future. Thank you for reading, and may the force be with you. Okay, so that's it. That's the whole post. Now, this is, again, it is completely up to you whether or not you believe what is being said here. It is completely up to you. I'm not saying that this is 100% true. I'm not saying this is also 100% false. What I am saying is, when you consider what we know now, I think, look, at this point in time, I think that the general audiences are not stupid. They know Access Media have an agenda. They know that. they also this is why I don't trust anything from Access Media. I don't trust them. Whether and no matter what their opinions are, it's all biased. Like just like they said, it is rare that you have a big news company that actually gives you unbiased journalism. It is rare. And this is precisely why people are going to YouTube now. They go talk to YouTubers because what they want now is honesty. They don't like being lied to. They don't like being fed bullshit. Because people can smell bullshit. Okay, that's why they go to YouTube and they go to independent content creators because they know that they don't own anything, that they don't owe anything to these corporations. They don't owe anything to them. And if there are any YouTubers who constantly just sing Disney's praises, well, then you know something's up then. You know something's up. When they just constantly sing a company's praises, even when something about them comes out that obviously proves that that they're being shady as shit, they'll still won't say anything because they know that if they do, they know the second they mention something bad about that company, they won't send anyone after them or anything, but you're basically done. Like, whatever connection you had to that company, it's done. Whatever connections you had that got you into early press screenings, whatever connections you had that got you, let's say, that got you any sort of benefits, like let's say invites to D23, yeah, all of that's gone. All of that is completely gone the second you say anything negative about a company. Or anything, I guess you could say, really, really negative, especially when they're trying to make themselves look good. Anything that affects their credibility. Like, if you have something on them, and if you reveal it, and you reveal who you are, again, considering how big Disney is, again, they won't do anything to you, but other than cut off whatever connections you had. The only connections you'll have are anonymous. They won't make themselves known, and that's all you'll have. You can say goodbye to early access to film, so you can put out a review before anyone else and drive all traffic to your channel or to your website or to your blog. Say goodbye to all of that. So if you want all of that, you better play ball. Even some of these independent content creators on, well, let's say YouTube, even if you catch them saying bad things about Disney or criticize Disney in any way, it's never to the point where they genuinely call them out on their bullshit. It's never to that point. And again, you'll never see them talking on their channel about something that's going on behind the scenes when it comes to Disney. Some of the shady shit that might be happening there. And it's a shame, because you would think that these independent content creators with as large a following as they have, you would think that they at the very least owe them the truth and stop bullshitting them. But and you know what, I at some point I kind of get it. Like you at the end of the day, you got to earn a paycheck, but at the same time you're going to end up losing a lot of credibility with your audience. And to me, that's just I don't think it's worth it. So yeah, I'm gonna end it here. This video went on a lot longer than I initially planned it to be. So again, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this, but more specifically, let me know what you thought about this post specifically and what was said here. Let me know, of course, what you think about everything we just read here. But again, this is the one I want to know mostly about from you guys. What are your thoughts on this? So again, leave it in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you join me on my next one. Bye.